back, listeners and viewers, to another week of Education, the Teachers Talk You Terror podcast, where myself, Mike,
and myself, Courtney,
are back again this week to talk about an old movie, 1942.
Yeah.
I was stumbled on my words because it's like we've covered the remake before the original, but we are here to talk about the Jacques Tourneur, Val Lewton movie, Cat People, the original Cat People, which I've seen this movie a few times. So this is probably the first time I've really really checked in and made sure I paid close attention to all the things, because it's an easy watch, just a little over an hour, about 73-minute watch or whatever, to where it's like, yeah, you're in, you're out. But with that, it's not a scary movie.
No.
Not in our traditional or even modern day sense of what horror is. There's no blood in this movie. There's no, there's no monster necessarily. There's no major ramifications. But back in 1942, this movie was a huge success, mainly just because of its atmosphere. There's a couple of key scenes in this movie that are very atmospheric. And really at the core of it, I think a pretty solid story of, with themes of loneliness and relationship struggles and, work wives and work husbands and just how that could be a negative effect on relationships. So, this movie came out on Christmas Day, actually, back in 1942, because that's what everybody wants to do on Christmas.
Yeah, open your presents and watch Cat People.
I'm still surprised of the attendance at NBA games on Christmas Day. You see them on TV, and you're like, the places are packed on Christmas Day, and you wonder how many of those in the stands are Christmas presents.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
So we're gonna go catch a Bulls game or whatever. Yeah. So our movie, this movie, because it is 1942, it's still early in cinema history, but it's far enough along that we've got an understanding of the medium. Wizard of Oz is already out at this point. Gone with the Wind is out at this point. So we know how to craft a story. We know how to make a film. But we also are at a point, especially for you and I, where we could look back at the history of film and we could be like, yeah, you could tell this movie was on a tight budget. And for me, one of the biggest, glaring characteristics of a tight budget was just how quickly they would transition between scenes. It felt like nothing really flowed into a scene. It was like, all right, set the camera up. We're going to film these people. All right, that's a wrap. Move on. Move the camera. Set it up.
Next.
Yeah, and that's just kind of how it felt. And that's okay. That really is okay, because I really think, by and large, the performances of this movie were pretty solid. So we meet Irena Irena. We meet her, our main character. She's from Serbia. We meet her at the zoo, like the Central Park Zoo there in New York. And heavy-handed, we see right away she's standing there. She's sketching this panther, in what appears to be if this is what zoos were like in the 40s, I don't blame PETA one bit for cracking down on the treatment of animals, as this is literally just concrete slab, cage, animal.
Mm-hmm.
No, nothing to shade on, no water, nothing to play with, not just flat surface animal cage. And so she's sketching this panther. She doesn't like how it's turning out. She wads it up and baseball pitches it towards a trash can, and she misses. Luckily, a single gentleman by the name of Oliver Reed, handsome, dashing fellow, he picks it up and comes over and he's basically like, hey, quit littering. She's got a pretty strong, she speaks English, but it's a pretty strong foreign accent.
Yeah.
They start talking or whatever. And so they just, would someone like you like to go out for tea sometime? And it's like they go have tea. She invites him back to her apartment, which in the 40s probably didn't mean the same thing as it does today.
Yeah.
And so really it was an opportunity to get Oliver back to her apartment so we could see this statue. I've said it on this show before, and I'll say it again. Older films, and I think I have a theory behind it. Older films give a lot of educational credit to their audience.
Mm-hmm.
Today's films at times feel like every beat of the story is spelled out for you. Like you'll have, especially in horror films, you'll have someone around the campfire that's talking about the entire history of whatever monster is in said movie. Like every Friday the 13th movie has some guy, usually a camp counselor before he's murdered, is telling everyone else at camp the history of Jason, just in case you didn't see the last 3 or 4 of them. But whereas this movie is like, there's the statue of King John of Serbia, and he has a panther stuck on a sword. Like, and that's just it. And Oliver's like, who's that? She's like, it's King John of Serbia. And they say it, they give a little bit of legend of, but they're talking about, like witchcraft and the Mamelukes and all of the stuff that like I have no knowledge of.
Yeah.
None at all.
None.
And they don't really go into a lot of deep history with it, but they are granting the audience enough educational credit to be like, they'll figure it out,
Yeah.
We don't have to spell it out for them. But so I really think this meet cute at the zoo was just a way for Oliver to get back to Irena's apartment so he could see the statue, so that she could talk a little bit about her cultural history of, the Christian residents, and they turned to witches because they were enslaved, and King John drove out the slave owners. But once he saw what everyone had become, he killed them, and so it's like it's kind of a like sad story of by the time he came to rescue his people, they had turned to witchcraft, which they don't. Again, it's not, and I like it. It's not completely spelled out about what they did with their witchcraft outside of the cat on the sword and the title of the movie, Cat People.
Yeah. And the cat on the sword, she had mentioned like that is like evilness. And like she had said like the most wicked, it ran off to the mountains. It didn't get killed.
Right. Yeah. So wickedness and evil is still out there.
Yeah.
What does Oliver take from this? Now, Oliver he's like a marine engineer. He's a pretty smart dude. What does he take from all this story? Oh, Irena likes cats.
Yep. Yeah, cool.
Well, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to go buy her a kitten. Because that is a great gift to give somebody who lives alone and you've met one time.
Mm-hmm.
Just
and
get
and
him
the cat
chore.
hates her.
Yeah,
the kitten hates her.
Instantly.
Like hissing. I mean, and if you've growing up on a farm, like we've got baby kittens now, it's like they're so cute and sweet. So like this kitten hissing at her, it's like, ooh, it's got a sixth sense.
Yeah, and she doesn't really. It doesn't faze her.
No,
she's just like, okay, that.
Let's just go switch it out.
Yeah, like I don't think that cat likes me.
Yeah.
Let's just return it to the pet shop and get something else. And of course, he's smitten, really. Which is odd because again, he's a handsome guy. He's a successful guy. We see him at work, and he's like totally. He's got a lot of charisma and socializes well. Like his best friend is a female at work, and she's very pretty. And it's like, what's the issue here?
Yeah.
But he's like, oh, there's a single woman at the zoo. I'm in love now. So they do go back to the pet shop, and guess what? All the animals hate her.
Yes.
And so all of them are just very like to the point she goes and stands outside of the pet store while he trades this in for a bird. She does eventually reveal to Oliver that she takes this King John of Serbia story very seriously.
She does.
And she tells him like, I think I'm a descendant of the cat people. The evil that got away. Mm-hmm. I think I come from that line.
And if I get aroused, I'll turn into a panther.
Yeah, like I think I'm a cat. And of course he's like, no. No,
Oliver's like, will you marry me?
Exactly.
Because I know, like, the second time Casey and I hung out, if I would have said, I think if I get aroused, I will turn into a panther, he would not get down on one knee.
No. Like Oliver here. Now, this just shows Oliver's desperation, which never, again, I just mentioned, it's never really painted a picture as to why he seems so desperate. I wasn't alive in the 40s. You weren't either. So I don't know what the courting measures were then. I know that you're like traditional, save yourself for marriage. It's still important today. I'm sure it was even more important in yesteryear. But it's like, I don't, like, you haven't even kissed this woman.
Yeah.
And she's straight telling you, I believe I will turn into a cat if I'm aroused. And he's like, well, let's get to bed then. Like,
let's get turn you into a panther.
Let's get this marriage over with so that we can see if that's true. And so that was kind of odd, obviously. But again, like you said, well, let's get married. And she's like, okay. And they get married, like, bam, like right away. Obviously much smaller scale. They just kind of go out to dinner at a restaurant, a Serbian restaurant, of course. Mm-hmm. And this woman that we don't see ever again, comes up to her and says to her in Serbian, or I'm guessing that's the language. Yeah. Says, my sister. Recognizes her, almost seems a little disgusted. Looking at her, I got the vibe, knowing what we eventually know about Irena, I could see her almost disgusted, like, you know what's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
You know, and that woman did kind of look like a cat. Like, she had that triangular face. And Irena kind of did too. So they did a good job casting the right people. And so this is like, granted, the movie is only 73 minutes. This is like 12 minutes into the movie. You know, this couple, they're married already. And like, let's get it, because if the whole basis of the story is Irena turns in, you know, she may or may not turn into a cat when she's aroused, well, then we have to get her to a position where she probably could or should be aroused. Yes. So we get her to marriage. And this is where things really start to deteriorate for these two. I never really did get the feeling with Oliver. Correct me if I'm wrong. I never got the feeling with Oliver that he was overly pushy for a physical relationship.
No, I feel like, which is like, again, you know, you get married, like that's just kind of in the air. But kudos to him, because I mean, he's obviously very physically attracted to her, but he's patient.
Yes. Yeah. But he's pretty chill, really.
And really all he's like, just please go talk to someone.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, because he does. It's like, I love you. And again, he's not necessarily, you know, pushing sex, but he's like, we're married now. Like, come on.
It's normal.
You won't even kiss me.
Yeah.
And she's torn by it. Like, she's not, she's aware of it. It's a burden on her shoulders, and she's afraid. I'm afraid of what's going to happen if we do. And he does. He's like, you need to go see a psychiatrist. Well, here's the big problem. We haven't really touched on it yet. Alice is Oliver's work buddy.
Yes.
They really do have a fairly platonic relationship, but you could tell just as a moviegoer, she's introduced to be the third leg of the triangle.
Yes.
And so Lewis, kind of an idiot. No, not Lewis. Oliver. Lewis is the psychiatrist. Yeah. Oliver's kind of an idiot.
He is.
Now, I say that because if you're I'm a man, and even I know better. if you're having marital issues, do not go talk about it with a female friend and then tell your wife you were talking about it with a female friend.
Especially someone you spend so much time with.
Yes.
And of the opposite sex.
Now, like, as a man, okay, I will speak on Oliver's behalf of, he really meant nothing by it.
Right.
That's how men operate. Our brains are like I trust you as a friend. I'm talking to you as a friend. But what Oliver doesn't realize, and what a lot of men don't realize, is there is an ever there is a lifelong chess match between every woman on the planet with every woman on the planet.
Yes. We are girl support girl, but we are also
you are your worst enemies.
Yes.
Absolute worst enemies. And men will be and will always be just pawns in that game. So when Oliver, when he's like, you need to go see a psychiatrist, and of course she's like, I don't know any. He's like, I don't either. So he goes and talks to Alice. Now, even though in his peanut brain he's saying to Alice, you're my friend, I need your help. Alice, well, on the surface, respond with, I am your friend, I will help you. But then there's that chess match underneath that's like, you just told me you got marriage problems.
Yeah.
Which makes you a little vulnerable. Mm-hmm. So I might be able to win. Like, when he was single, Alice didn't appear that she was interested in a date at all. At all.
She just wants what she can't have.
Exactly, because the guy was single. It's like, it's like a cat and a dead mouse. It's like, well, once I caught the mouse, what am I going to do with it?
Yeah.
Nothing. So when Oliver was there for the taking, Allison, there's no game in this. I'm not interested. There's no game here. But as soon as Oliver is like, my wife is having some issues. We haven't consummated our marriage. She's like, crosses her legs, like, do tell.
You're
tell
all
me more.
Mine. Yeah.
So again, gives him the information he needs, but again, understands that he's dumb enough to then go back to Irena and is like, oh, hey, I talked to Alice and she gave me a good psychiatrist. And of course, because they're women and you guys play this game and it's fascinating. And I'm so glad I got a female co-host or I would never say these things. Because it's fascinating that the only thing Irena gets out of this, he comes back and says, hey, recommendation for a psychiatrist, someone who she's already agreed to go see. She said, I will go see a psychiatrist. I don't know any. He comes back with a recommendation. Story could have ended right there. However, once he says, Alice gave me a recommendation, Irena wouldn't care if it is the greatest psychiatrist on the face of the planet.
He's trash.
Yes. Like, you did what?
Yeah.
Now, if he would have come back, I believe if he would have come back and said, hey, I talked to Larry at work, and Larry recommended Dr. Lewis Judd, I would have been like,
Larry.
I would have been like, oh, great. When can I go see him?
Yes, and that, I don't know. I hate it. But that is girl nature. That is girl nature all the way. And it's one of those things, like, I truly am like, you just can't control. And that's why I'm thankful. Casey has no female friends except for my best friends. He's just been that way since we met. So I'm like, do I trust him? Yes. But if he were to say, hey, Samantha told me this, I'd be like, then I don't care about it. I don't want that.
Why are you talking to her?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I get it. And that's what puts me in, especially like with the city stuff that I've been trying to do, puts me in a very peculiar situation because you're surrounded by women. Surrounded by women. It was no different in education. Yeah. Surrounded by women.
And bless Jenny's heart because.
But see,
I
know better though. See,
yes, you're smart enough.
I love my wife. Jenny's my favorite person on the entire planet. I love her to the point that I try to think those chess pieces ahead of like, okay, I'm going to have this meeting with these people. A, I'm going to tell her where I'm going and who I'm with. B, I'm going to tell her when we're starting. And so it's like, just so she knows, if just the possible off chance I'm parked at a location I'm not normally parked at, someone drives by, sees my car parked there, says something to her, like, I gotta let her know beforehand.
Yes.
Not because she's a jealous person.
Right.
No.
It's in our brain. It's just that is.
I just know that is how women are wired. Yep. So do I like it? No. Do you like it? No. But it's just the way it is. So it's like, well, you can't beat them, you join them.
That's right.
Like, I'm going to feed as much information to you as I can so that you know all the details. And just to be crystal clear, like, this is what's going on. There's a reason why the city stuff is we're in a text chain. Yeah. I don't do one-on-one texting.
Yeah.
It's Is there any distrust? Of course not. But still.
Exactly. It's just,
still.
yeah. Yep, it
But
is.
Still.
It's how we're wired.
Yeah.
You're either like that or you're lying if you're a female.
You're,
so it's like you're lying to yourself if you think you're not like that.
No, honestly, I think you're either like that or you haven't been in a position yet to realize you're like that.
True.
Yeah, that's probably a little. I don't think you're lying. I just think, oh, that's not me yet. You haven't had that chance.
Very true.
So anyway, back to the movie.
So now Alice is like all in her feels for Oliver.
Oh, big
she's like, I love you.
Yeah, I love you. And he's like, okay, good. Because I need help.
Yeah, like, please. So we switch scenes to a restaurant. And Irena sees Oliver and Alice together.
Well, it was a situation of things were getting a little static at home.
Yes.
And they were not fighting, but Oliver's like, I told you I'll never fight with you. I'm going to go to work. I got some work to do. He goes to work, but before he gets there, he's like, you know what? I'm going to go grab a slice of pie. Fair enough. Like, the movie did a really great job of playing on this without being blatant that it's playing on this. So he goes to get pie when Irena calls the office to basically be like, come home, let's talk this through. Alice is also at work.
Yeah.
So she answers the phone. Irena doesn't say a word, but she just hears Alice's voice. Instantly is like, aha, now I know why he's going to work. Which, again, it sucks being a guy sometimes.
Yeah,
because
it does.
Oliver, at this point, honestly, Oliver has done nothing but the right thing for Irena.
Yep.
Nothing but the right thing for her. However, circumstances as they be, it doesn't look that way. So it doesn't really matter what anything he says because she's already decided, this is what I heard, this is what I saw, you're guilty. And it sucks. It sucks so bad. So, but I didn't mean to cut you off. But
you're fine.
It's this crisscross. It's a crisscross. He went to work, stopped to get a slice of pie. She was leaving work. Well, the cleaner lady or whatever was like, "Oh, you just missed Mr. Reed. He's went to get pie." So then naturally, Alice is going to be around Oliver any chance she gets.
Well, yeah.
So she stops by. Oh, hey, Oliver. Well, Irena just happens to see them together. Yep. Again, not doing anything. Honestly, not even like sneakily doing anything on Oliver's part. He's just like, I'm just here to get coffee and pie. Like,
yeah, I was just hungry.
Yeah.
And so Irena decides to watch or follow Alice home.
Yeah, this is the first like big suspenseful part of the movie.
Yeah, and a little jump scare as well because she called that bus. And the bus, like you're sitting there watching her and then boom, it just comes onto the screen. I was like, ooh.
Make you jump a little bit? Well, and again, it's so well directed.
Yeah.
Because like Alice is walking home, Irena again follows her, and we hear two sets of footsteps. And we hear two sets of footsteps. And then we hear one set of footsteps. Mm-hmm. And Alice at this point's freaked out because she's like, I feel someone following me, but I can't see them. And then everything's super quiet. There's no music playing in the background. It's just footsteps and quiet. And then then the bus comes rushing in. And so that was our first instance of where'd Irena go? You know, she already thinks she might turn into a panther when she's aroused, but maybe also when she's frustrated.
Yeah, maybe it's just strong feelings.
Yeah. So we cut to the zoo.
Yes.
There are several dead sheep at the zoo. And the paw prints leading away from that, because it was very clear an animal did this.
Yeah, yeah. Except the paw prints like morph into a woman's, like a shoe.
Yeah.
I mean, and you can tell it's a woman's shoe.
Yeah. So we are led to believe that if Irena does transform into a panther, her clothing also transforms with her.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's probably overthinking it, but like okay.
She heads home.
Yeah.
And she hops in the bath.
Well, and she has seen Dr. Judd at this point. She did go see the psychiatrist.
Yes, she did.
Told him absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
And only because he does come up again.
Right. And she falls asleep in the bathtub, doesn't she?
Yeah.
Or she
she does.
Like, dozing,
Yeah.
And Dr. Judd shows up in her dream.
Yeah, it was kind of a trippy dream.
Yeah. And he's dressed up like, it's like if you see those pictures of like Jesus anywhere and it's like the halo of light coming around him, like Dr. Judd's coming like that, dressed up as King John, and he's like the key.
Yeah, so and that's really it. Again, everything in this movie is to move the plot forward, which is fine. There has been a couple of instances. One instance before where she was there checking out the panther, and the like the groundskeeper at the zoo had just fed the panther and left his key in the panther lock. Mm-hmm. Well, she takes it and returns it to him. Like, oh, I'm leaving that key. I'm forgetting that key all the time. Okay, foreshadowing, because now, like you said, we get that same thing, only this time Irena steals the key instead of giving it back to him.
Yeah. Yeah, and we've got the next little subplot of they head to a museum together. The three of them.
Oliver is such an idiot.
Irena, Oliver, and Alice.
And they go to like a marine museum.
Yeah.
By the way, these two are marine engineers, so this is right up their alley.
But they just ignore Irena, and it's just, I'd be mad too.
Because Oliver's just an idiot. Because Oliver, genuinely, I really think he's into these displays. Yeah. And Alice is equally into these displays and into Oliver.
I was going to say, just as much as she is Oliver.
So here's an opportunity to freeze her out. And then when Irene is bored, Oliver's like, well, you can go on downstairs. We'll be down there soon. I'm like, oh, you're such a trash man.
Oh, will you? Okay.
Yeah.
Later that night, Alice, the apartment she lives in, it's got a pool downstairs, and she goes swimming.
Yeah.
And she just, it didn't show the animal though, did it?
No.
Like it just,
Irena,
you could hear it.
Irena showed up at the apartment. Yeah. I don't know if she showed up to confront her, because obviously she didn't know she was going to go swimming. But she shows up at the apartment and asks for Alice, and she lies to the lady. Oh, I'm her cousin or something like that. Oh, she just went swimming. Apparently in the dark, as you do. But yeah, so there's a lot of shadows. But yeah, she goes, Irena follows Alice into the pool area.
Yeah. And when Alice finds her, like when Irena appears, she's like, oh, I'm just looking for Oliver.
Right. Well, there is a lot. This is actually like the big second suspenseful piece of Alice is swimming, and then she hears like panther growling.
Yeah.
And so we know now, because at the the lead up to the bus thing, we never heard anything. We saw a little ruffling in the bushes.
And you can hear like the loudness of the, they did a really good job, I felt like, with the sound, because it was just so echoey.
Very much so. Was. But Alice is like, kind of like at the end of It Follows, where she's trapped in the middle of the pool. Like, where do you go? Mm-hmm. Where do you go when something is after you and it's just pacing the pool and you can't really see it? What do you do? And so she just starts screaming. And eventually somebody comes and flips the lights on, and then, that's where Irena's back to normal, like you said. And Irena turns on the lights. That's right. She turns on the lights. She's like, I'm just looking for Oliver.
Yeah. No need to panic.
Like, oh, what are you freaking out about? It's just me.
Yeah, I'm freaking out about my shredded bathrobe.
Yeah.
That's what I'm freaking out about.
Yeah.
She heads back. Irena heads back to Dr. Judd.
Right.
And, she's no longer, she's not worried anymore about anything.
I think she's had her closure and is like, you know what?
Yeah.
I'm over this marriage.
Yeah. And Oliver's like, nope, not now. Like, it's too late.
Yeah. Yeah, because she does. She goes and she comes clean with Oliver of like, all right, honey, I'm ready. Let's do this. And which... Oh, Oliver's such an idiot.
Yeah, because now he wants a divorce and he wants to marry Alice.
Which is probably smart.
Yeah,
Only
because that's where
because
his attention is.
I get where he's coming from, but it's like, all right, you've got Alice waiting to throw herself at you.
Mm-hmm.
You've been patient but frustrated with your wife's inability to throw herself at you. Now the woman you're married to comes up and says, okay, Oliver, I'm ready. Let's do this. So here is the chance Oliver's been waiting for, right? Like, this is one of those rare times when the peanut brain wins at chess.
Yeah.
When he's got two women fighting over him. And here's the one instance in this movie where both women are ready to throw themselves at him. To where, not that I condone this type of behavior, because I absolutely don't. But here's an opportunity for Oliver to be like, my wife wants to consummate the marriage. I've been waiting for this. I could have the best of both worlds.
Yeah, because
at least once.
She'll turn into a panther and then I can be with you.
He doesn't know that yet, but it's like,
right.
But like, Irena is like, let's do this. And Oliver's like, no. I'm like, oh, dude, the whole reason this is blown out of proportion is because the conversation has been flipped. When you've been saying, let's do this, she's been saying no, and you're like, you're crazy. And now suddenly he's like, okay, Oliver, I'm ready. And he's like, nah, it's too late. See, Alice loves me. It took you how long to figure this one out, dummy?
Uh-huh.
So again, he could have been in that rare instance where right now he's married with an infatuated other person and he's getting no action.
Mm-hmm.
Here's an opportunity where he could have had double the action.
Yes.
And he still passes.
Yep.
Like an idiot.
Yeah.
I don't know how he got that engineer's degree.
At work, Oliver and Alice are heading out and they're cornered by an animal.
A panther.
Yeah. Growling at them, just tormenting them. They do escape, but they realize one thing and they smelled Irena, her perfume.
They had made, again, foreshadowed earlier, there was one comment earlier about her perfume and how distinctive it was. And so now it's back. It's like, it is nice to see those little pieces of information dropped early so they make sense later. Like, I just think that's smart writing when you can do that instead of coming up with some just crazy reason why something worked out. You're like, oh, you smelled her perfume. You'd mentioned earlier, like, that's kind of nice.
Right, yeah.
Oh, you stole the panther key.
Yeah,
you stole the panther key. Well, you mentioned earlier you're always forgetting it. Like, that, I'm glad that when that works out. It's just smart writing. All right, so how's this wrap up?
So Alice calls Judd because she's like, listen, stay away from Irena. She's dangerous, blah, blah, blah. Well, he ends up hanging up because Irena's there for her appointment.
Right.
And
he's a psychiatrist, so he wants to find out the truth.
Yeah. And they're talking and things get passionate.
Well, yeah.
He
basically forced. Because again, she's been telling him the same thing. Finally, I think I turn into a cat when I'm aroused. I don't know. I've never really been aroused.
And so he's gonna arouse her.
Yeah. Well, is that how it works? I don't know. If someone forces a kiss on you, are you aroused? I wouldn't think so. But we've also
in this movie.
Well, we've also seen a couple of times where just Irena's turned into a panther because she's angry.
Yeah.
So either way.
Time
is limited for Dr. Judd.
And she turns into a panther and Dr. Judd dies.
Yeah, your theory is confirmed, Dr. Judd. And now you're dead.
And it just wraps up quickly here. Oliver and Alice come over to see him. And Irena slips away and kind of she heads back to the zoo.
Right. Because she's a panther. She deserves to be in the panther cage.
Yep. With the keys that she has taken. And the other panther is killed.
Yeah.
And then that panther had gotten out next to it had been struck by a car, and then they find a body. Alice and Oliver find a body on the ground, and it is Irena's.
Yes. And Oliver,
So,
and then Oliver just says, "She's never lied to us," and then like puts his arm around Alice, and off they walk. Like,
yeah.
like nice and tidy.
Yep.
By the way, this is supposed to be New York, but apparently every location in this movie is just around the corner from every other location necessary.
Yeah.
Because again, we go from wherever Oliver and Alice were to Judd's office to the zoo in like a minute.
Mm-hmm.
So it didn't take long to travel. But yeah, so thankfully this worked out. That yucky Serbian Irena is out of the way, and Oliver and Alice can go have their passionate relationship.
Yeah.
Although I have a feeling Alice isn't as interested anymore because there's no other
He's
woman.
single now.
Yeah, there's no woman involved. And that is the original 1942 Cat People. It really is pretty similar to the remake. The remake didn't. It stayed fairly true. The remake did have this whole weird like, I'm your brother, the Panther, and we have to mate, which was an 80s spin on things. But either way, I don't mind this movie. I like this movie.
It wasn't terrible.
So if you had to grade it, what would you grade it?
I would probably give it a B-.
Okay.
It was tolerable.
That's
I'd
good.
watch it again. I think having no gore really just which again, it's from the 40s and, but that just kind of, I don't want to say ruined it because it didn't ruin it, but it just kind of brought it down a little bit.
You've got a checklist of things that you like to see, and that is one of them. And so, but we look back at like, You Won't Be Alone had a little bit of gore. Sixth Sense didn't have any gore. Frankenhooker had a bunch of goofy gore. Possession was fairly clean. Slaughter High was dumb. The Stepfather was clean. I Spit on Your Grave really didn't have any gore. Really, it's been since mid-February with The Descent was like the last time we had any gore. So B- for you. I'm going to give this movie a B. I think it's solid. Even though movies like this don't hold the fear factor that current movies do, I think that they are still an excellent piece of like the building of the horror genre. There's no gore, but at the same time, everything was pretty much still black and white at that time. Not everything, but most everything was still black and white at that time. And so even if you had gore, it's not going to be overly effective because you don't have the colors. Yeah. But this did give filmmakers an opportunity to learn about what it takes to build suspense in an audience and to get that payoff. And so some of that stuff still carries over to today. And so it is nice to see a piece of horror history like this, like pay dividends and be like, oh, okay. Yeah. Like it wasn't real scary, but I could see some elements of this that have gone elsewhere. Like I even mentioned, It Follows, not that the pool scene is, an homage to it, but just that fear of like, what do you do if you're stuck in the middle of the water? Like, what do you do? So, let me go back. I don't remember what the first Cat People, what it did for us. Of course, it's YouTube's telling me you don't have a Cat People episode. Like, yeah, we do. Let's see. Let me roll through here. Cat People. It was quite a while ago that we did this.
Yeah, it was in October.
Was it?
Yeah, because it was when we did a movie each day.
Oh, okay. That's why it's not on the list. Okay, never mind.
Yep.
I was looking for the independent episode. That's why it's not there. So, all right. So B- for you, B for me. You ready to hear what I want to watch next week?
I am.
It's a new movie.
Okay.
It's still in theaters in some places. Okay. It actually came to theaters March 22nd.
Okay.
we are going to watch it actually debuted in 2023, but regardless, we're going to watch the recent supernatural horror film called Late Night with the Devil.
Okay.
Late Night with the Devil. Here is the film synopsis. It's Halloween 1977. Johnny Carson rival Jack Delroy. You know who Johnny Carson is?
Probably if I saw him.
Well, you're familiar with Jimmy Fallon.
Yes.
Jimmy Fallon hosts The Tonight Show. Johnny Carson used to host The Tonight Show and is often considered the greatest late night talk show host ever. He was the Tonight Show host for a very long time.
Okay.
And so this takes place in the 70s. Johnny Carson rival Jack Delroy hosts a syndicated talk show, Night Owls, that has long been a trusted companion to insomniacs around the country. A year after the tragic death of his wife, ratings have plummeted. Desperate to turn his fortunes around, he plans a Halloween special like no other, unaware that he is about to unleash evil into the living rooms of America. 97% of the critics gave it a positive review, and 81% of audiences also like it. I've watched the trailer for this a couple of times, and I'm like, oh, I want to watch that movie. And then I found it, and so we are going to watch it. And that is my pick for next week. Late Night with the Devil. I think it probably just lays it. I don't want to read anything outside of the critics or the trailer stuff, but I'm very, very excited to watch this one. So yeah, Late Night with the Devil. You got anything to shout out before we get going?
Nope. This is our last full week of school.
Oh yeah, last full week of school.
It's getting real.
I know. We're down to like 4-4-3.
Yeah.
3 weeks of school left.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Yep. And then I'll have my kids home. But that's okay. So social media wise, you guys could find us Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Letterboxd link down below. Once I find some time to add the movies we've been watching. I don't even remember the last one I have on there. I'll tell you real quick. Last one on our list that I've logged is I got work to do because it was Slaughter High. I'm going to leave this up so I can just add movies now. But yeah, so Letterboxd down below if you want to kind of follow along with the movies we've covered. Other than that, ladies and gentlemen, thanks again for coming out and listening, reviewing the show. Leave a comment if you'd like, a suggestion if you want. We're open to any and all suggestions. I'm very curious what your pick will be for next week. I will admit, these 2 weeks are probably my favorite 2 weeks.
Yeah, they're mine too.
Yeah, I do like the shuffle. I don't mind the shuffle at all. But it's just, I like to see what you bring to the table, and then I like to be forced to bring something to the table. But we are wrapping up this week, and we will be back next week with Late Night with the Devil. For Education, I'm Oz.
And I'm
Mike. I'm sorry. I'm back and forth. I sign off the other one with it's Oz and Curtis on the other one. For Education, I'm Mike.
And I'm Courtney.
And we'll see you guys next week.
Bye.